there's like this little window now where people that are some people are like, I've looked at the AI code, it's rubbish. But they looked 6 months ago and they're like, didn't like it, I think I can do better, right? It's moving on, right? It's moving on at such a speed that it's not a if it's going to happen, it's when it becomes mainstream. And you want to be, when it becomes mainstream, you need to be able to have all this confidence about I can bend it to my will. So it's like 10 of me, not just me rushing around chasing 10 idiots, but it's 10 people doing work how I want work done, which means that I am more productive rather than I'm just running around like headless chicken. It's generating tons of stuff. I don't even know if it works. You can really rig the game in your favour, and all of this stuff is out there in the Claude documentation. But people tend not to get into it, right? But those people who are effective at AI engineering, and that will be a whole new family of jobs that we see, are doing this stuff and are all over it. Even if it doesn't work quite right now, it is going to work well, right? That's just everyone needs to get past the whole worry about it, because it is going to knock everyone's socks off, because it's getting better and better and better and better. It may be clunky in places now, but that's just now. It will become so much more effective, and so many more of these capabilities to control it. Oops, are going to exist. So as they improve, the people that are keeping up with it and are using it as it's intended are going to be like streets ahead. So and the thing is, they're the people. So what we want to be doing is, you want to be talking to somebody's boss going, yeah, no, I can make your team so much more effective that you will probably have to scale back the amount of work that they do because the rest of your business won't keep up.
Yeah.
And the difficulty here is that, and I read a good, someone I like wrote a blog article about this, is that the difficulty is it's sort of, I don't want it to, but what we now know is going to take people's jobs. It has to, because it's a bit like when people started having robots in car building. Ultimately, it's like we don't need people riveting anymore, because we've got something that will rivet well enough that it can do it faster and doesn't need a toilet break. And this is now where we're at. It's like, yeah, all that typing you used to do with your code, that's cute and all, but nobody does that anymore. Yeah, it's definitely a concern that some places are not, well, some people are going to make some really bad decisions really quickly about how to proceed with this. Some folk are just going to hear people are more productive and just be like, right, everyone out. We don't need you all anymore, which of course is wrong. But others are going to be smarter about it, and recognise that we don't need the same sorts of people, but just in the same way in the car manufacturing, suddenly you needed people that could program robots and maintain robots. This is what's happening next. That's another part of the expertise, is being able to then sit with people and describe to them, I'm looking at how you're using it, this is why you're not being that efficient now, and this is a thing you need to think about doing to increase your efficiency. When people just go in and just start asking it questions that they miss, because there is a whole way of creating guardrails and structured process around what you're doing that will take a lot of the danger out of just letting Claude run amok. Because effectively it's like, well, I have a higher degree of confidence now that this thing is going to behave in a way that that I want. But so that's the kind of where you end up at, because now I can shape it to work in a way that I think is valuable. The flip side to this, and something I'm seeing consistently from people, is they describe they describe experiencing fatigue quite quickly when working with an LLM like Claude, because you it's just so quick, and it does mean that there's a danger that you're trying to do more, and suddenly you're having to switch context more. Um, so although you're not writing as much code yourself and a lot gets generated for you, if you think about it now, you have the capacity that you could be working on 3 or 4 different Power BI models or dashboards or problems all at the same time. And it's like, I've got to get my head around this because I'm suddenly able to be more productive. But by being more productive, there's so much more coming at me, and that's really tough. It gives you and I don't think it's a misplaced, but it gives you a sense of technical confidence that you can now attempt some things and have someone looking over your shoulder that's not judging you, but can actually help you with some shortcuts to get just enough done that you don't have to worry about the rest of that techie stuff. It sort of knocks down barriers, which is, I think, the thing that's so valuable. If people are going, oh, I need to get in an AI expert, it's like, mate, don't do that. Your teams can do this. They just need someone's arm around the shoulder. You know, give it a couple of weeks, and we could get people like sprinting along with this. But they just need a couple of weeks. It's literally, and it's not. I mean, it's obviously, if they've got day jobs, it's kind of like over a course of a month, we could absolutely take a few people who are open to the idea and transform them into like really effective AI users.
I'm seeing key people that are going to be able to do that. People that are very close to data. You know, your people that look after databases. Your people that see data all the time.
But they're people that have never necessarily been given the opportunities. But for whatever reason, it may be that the challenge has been the tooling is such that we can only give you access to all the data, not just the bit of data you want, which therefore is a security risk, etc., etc. But you know, actually, if people have now, because things are so easy to do, there needs to be a lot of thought put into how we remove blockers from organisations getting all the possible value out of their systems and data, because it's never been easier, and I think a lot of these blocks could be worked. No, not could be overcome. Sort of, they're blocks for a current. If there are security and compliance reasons, you can develop solutions that are acceptable to your sort of corporate governance. I mean, I think that's okay as long as you know what the governance is. But I think historically there's just been too many easily not fabric. There are too many convenient reasons become blockers that don't get challenged because it's too hard to challenge them. I think we can challenge them better now. The reality is that if they can be generating more, you're going to drive the whole business along at a frantic rate. That's the way to look at it. Not that you can save money, but by doing more, you can add more value. And I think there's this sort of the human side of this is how can the message be positioned to make people not just look at savings, but look at the brilliant. That means we can do all these things that I keep being asked for that I haven't got the budget for. The thought I had was that you get some folk, and I've seen them online go, "LI's been great. I now get my day's work done by 9:30, and then I spend the rest of the day doing whatever I want." And for
Right.
me, I'm like, and they're saying the biggest challenge is looking busy. It's like, mate, that's the sort of person that needs to go,
They
because
are.
what they should be doing is going, well, this is amazing. I can deliver outcomes faster. What's the next most important thing? They should be like banging on the door for more work,
Right.
going, we can transform this place around. Like their job isn't just to write lines of code, it's to move the business forward. So it's now more than ever. Those people that want to move a business forward are getting supercharged, and leaders have got to be able to identify them and invest in them because they're the ones that are going to make the differences. Well,
No.
that's right. You're almost embarrassed about the lack of capacity, and it's like, well, look, I keep saying no. I hate saying no all the time, and it's like, well, let's start saying yes because you can now. Like the tools are there, so you can get more done. The biggest thing this will throw up is how then do businesses as a whole get better at prioritizing the work because more can get done. It's sort of you're going to have to keep prioritizing the most important thing and validating is that most important thing adding as much value as we thought, because that whole cycle around idea, build, deploy, measure, was it build, measure, learn, whatever the cycle that we've got going on here is, that's going to get supercharged. Because that's getting supercharged, the focus will need to be on how can we be seen to be making better bets at the start about what's going to add value and how do we develop those skills, because now the delivery skills have been supplemented, delivery supercharging, we're deploying more, measurement of is this stuff effective needs to be supercharged because it can feed back into supercharging the whole idea part of this. Because there's a stat Microsoft Research released, and I'm going to get this wrong, so I need to double check it, but something like 70% of all good ideas on how to improve a business don't. So, you know, there is a lot of stuff that doesn't necessarily move the needle. And how do you then get better at identifying early those ideas that will move the needle so that you can put them to the top of the pile?
Two things I've seen. One is that I saw somebody justify a case for development on the basis of some data that had been collected for them. And that data had been sent through to me, and it was a relatively small investment that they were looking to make. It was like a couple of tens of £1,000s to do something. And their argument was that if you spend, let's say it was 20 grand, can't really remember, it was less than 50. But if you spend this amount of money, I remember the big number because that was more the one. They'll remain nameless, but the person had said, if we do this, this data shows you that we would generate £500,000 in additional revenue.
Wow.
Always get a little bit concerned when I hear things like that. So what I did is I had a look at the data myself, and not only it had just been misinterpreted, because not only would it not generate that much money, it would actually have a negative return, plus you would be 20 grand out of pocket because you'd spent the money. And so yes, the data, so this prioritization will be important, but it is trusting who is the data, trusting the data, and trust the person that is doing the prioritization.
This all sort of slots together, right? Because this comes into the whole, look, you're being told it's expensive to get your data in order and in a single place. Well, that's lies, because this is how we do that now. These are some of the tools that can be used. This is some of the approaches to making sure you've got clean data so we can get some consistent basic reporting out to give you meaningful end-to-end measurement of how effective you are as a business. Off the back of that, then, we can start this loop of, we're going to build, we're going to measure, we're going to learn.
On that report, you know how you say about this prioritization, one of the risks of, so this might become difficult, because there were 10 reports, if you like, that a business had to produce. And they had to prioritize, well, what do you do first then? What's most important to the business? So I went to them, what is the most thing that's important to you? And they came back and they went, well, we need to do this, which is to do with fill rates, and then we need to do this, which is to do with whatever and whatever. We sort of ranked these reports. And we went out and got an external quote for doing these. Then the external quotes were coming back at tens of thousands of pounds per report. It wouldn't be that much if you did it internally. It's just they didn't quite have the skills. They've got them. It's fine. But the thing is, when it came back and it went, this is like 20 grand to do, all of a sudden the prioritization changed, and it became, actually, that's not that important to us. So we'll take 3 straight off the table. If I'm going to have to spend 60 grand, I don't want it.
That's
But
amazing, isn't it?
yeah, it's no longer a priority. It was a priority. Now it's not. So
Mm,
it's that flim, you got your first example where it's made up numbers as to what would be a priority. You've got your second example, which is it's only a priority if it's free, and that will be the risk. This is what I'm thinking.
yeah,
If you say, well, we are now going to be able to produce this 10 times faster, well, in theory, then your 20 grand number comes down to 2 grand. And now they'll go, oh, yeah, no, we definitely want that for 2 grand. We want it.
yeah.
So you want something that wasn't that important to you when it had a bigger monetary value.
Yeah, and I do think that's some of those ideas had almost been overdeveloped in isolation from the whole delivery team, and this is where I think this is where you have a gap between technical teams that talk about the business, and the business is responsible for doing a bunch of stuff, and then they give it to IT, but actually they're all the business, whether they like it or not, right? And you need to get people really close together. And if the conversation had initially not been around how much is it going to cost to do this specific thing, but if there was just this whole unified shared view of these are the priorities of outcomes we're trying to do, together they can come up with and here's some initiatives that we feel could deliver those outcomes. Then you look at what is it, how can we do those, in is there a trade-off between like cost, complexity, thoroughness, but you've almost, the priorities were the priorities, and then it's a case of right, how do we do this to get the best bang for our buck together, rather than somebody going, the way to fix this is I want a button that goes to a screen that gives me a report. And it's like, no, that's not necessarily it. But there is there's a more mature, joined up approach towards sort of recognizing what the outcomes are that are needed, and then coming up with different ways in which you deliver an impact to your business that allows you to hit some of those goals.
I think that's the difference about point to point delivery and having a strategy. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and this comes down to being sort of more product centric. It's not, we don't want to do we don't want a roadmap per system, because that doesn't make sense, because you need a business roadmap. Like, you don't go to the market based on your systems. The systems are there to support things. So ultimately you want to be like, well, what does business version 2 look like? And then we can look at what do we need to do to move the systems on enough as an end to end to support the changing business landscape.
We need to get people talking.
Mm, yeah, talking together as well. Too much gets done in the silos, and that's partly because historically IT and business people don't necessarily have that shared vocabulary, because the system people retreat to their specific systems that they're responsible for, rather than truly listening to what the business folk are saying.
I've been recording some of this,
Yeah,
and I started recording. I started recording. I'm going to stop now,
that's
but
all right.
well, it's just I started recording it because I wanted to get a list of the stuff that you're doing in Claude, but I think that's a fairly robust technology-based discussion that might.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I mean, these conversations are awesome to have, and it's just it's not off. I mean, certainly when you're at work and you're on the hook for stuff, you tend not to have space to have these as easily,
Yeah,
because people are nearly always on the back foot, aren't they? Because what will have happened is that IT will have been given a budget for how little they're allowed to spend. The business will have been. I've done it myself now. Look at that. The business as a whole has got sales targets to hit, which are going up. The sort of the support functions, whether it's legal, HR, marketing, and IT, have all got these like rapidly shrinking cost bases that they've got to better manage, and somehow like the shrinking of this has got to result in the inflation of that, and it's like, well, that's not really how this works together. We need to be thinking in a more and budgeting in a different way.